Patricia St. Ange, who's one of the people who was with us at the beginning of Sweet Livity, she was really instrumental in facilitating the process that led to the Mandela grocery co-op. And so I wonder if you might want to talk to her too.
Yeah,
might want to text them, but Patricia St. Ange, yeah, she would be really good to, and I'll put her name here in the chat. Because what I would say, the reason I say that is because
open up the chat.
There's so like Sam and I, right, who were with the Sweet Livity Co-op from the very beginning, and Patricia and a few of the people were there at the beginning advising. And one of the things that Patricia and Sam and I have in common that I think Patricia probably brought to Mandela, and that influences how we do sweet things at Sweet Livity, is what we call culturally based work or culturally based capacity building. And so Patricia is one of the founding members of the National Community Development Institute, and that organization is no longer around. But Omowale Satterwhite, who was the visionary behind that idea, and he's still around. He's in East Palo Alto in California. But Omo, founded NCDI, and Patricia was one of the first founding staff, and they took like a whole year or a year plus some months to develop their approach before they ever started working. And it was this idea of like, how do you do work in a culturally based way that considers the context in which something is happening?
That's
so I
brilliant.
think
that's actually really brilliant. I would love to speak to them.
Yeah, so Patricia, I would know, brought a particular way of facilitating that process that then I think is also a difference, because depending on how a co-op forms, I think that makes all the difference. And
yeah,
I can't tell you how many it was women, because I've been in circles with other women business owners, and the few that shifted into a co-op model, when I was telling them, oh, this takes time, and they were like, oh yeah, so we just decided to make the decisions, and then like we decided to set the structure and make decisions and then invite people in. I was like, oh, okay, is that really how it's supposed to go? So I just we're 3.5 years in, and we're finally at this moment, but it takes time. If people are really going to own it, you have
3.5 years
to struggle through all the conversations and you have to actually build community.
Wow.
That's
such a novel idea.
Yeah,
you have to build community.
Yeah, you have to build community. I was talking.
That's the antithesis of what we're all about, but I feel like that is the point of cooperatives. But if you're missing that point, cooperatives,
and I feel that what happens a lot of times, which is, I've learned it too, but I think a lot of times people are looking for people who love the mission. I'm like, no, you got it wrong. You have to find people who you love
deep,
and as you love each other and build community together, you start caring for each other, then you figure out what you want to do together.
Deep.
And because I had an original idea, and then as soon as I was like, oh no, I get it. No, I get it. Like, no, that ain't it. Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's funny that you say that, because I read that a lot of cooperatives start by book clubs, and people are back in the day at least, and then people kind of like you said, like what you just said, like loving each other, is the way I say it, like being friends and being like, hey, you know what, let's do this, which I feel like is what's really needed, because if you are going to cooperate, you have to care what the other people think.
Yes yeah, you have to care about what they think, and also, which I think, I guess maybe different co-ops might, because there's all these definitions of co-ops, and so different kinds. But I realized for us, at some point in the process, we realized, oh, wait, if this isn't improving the quality of our lives, it's not worth doing. It's not, you can't separate it out. Whatever service. You
mean work from life? Is that what you mean? That can't separate out?
No more let's say in our case, we started out with the idea that we would co-create this co-op to scale up the work Sweet Livity had already been doing, which was like DEI, restorative HR, justice work.
Okay.
That was the original idea. But as we got to know each other so well and really grew to care for each other, we realized, wait, there's something wrong, because the people in our group are harmed by the very issues that we're trying to help organizations tackle. Meaning, like, you know, we are on purpose an all BIPOC group, and we are Black majority led. And so when we think about the intersecting identities that we all hold, just the pandemic and everything that happened with the rebellion and the heightened attention, I'm going to call it, to racial injustice that's been here for centuries. But you have some people who just got a clue, right, in 2020. And so what we realized was, oh, wait. Our own people building this co-op are suffering because of who they are. Like, society doesn't care about us. We weren't meant to thrive and be free and all that. So we started having to have different kind of conversations. Like, when the pandemic hit, I was one of the first ones to get sick, and I got really, really sick. So like the first thing that happened was people mobilized a healing circle for me, which was amazing to have like over 100 people coming together to support me and witness me speaking my truth about like what I just was like, what's happening here? And then as we started realizing that all of us were vulnerable during the pandemic, like we had people who were for sure sick or taking care of sick loved ones who lost loved ones. We had people who I don't know how I'm going to make my bills. I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent or my mortgage. You had people who were like the trauma, I think, of this moment we're in. And remember, the pandemic came on the heels of 4 years of a really brutal administration. So even going back to 2016, I remember thinking, oh, this is going to be bad, because as soon as he got into office, I was like, oh, I call him Fake 45. I don't even like to say his name. But when he got into office, I was like, oh boy. I said, okay, so I believe you. I believe you. So these are not going to be good times for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And I was like, we're going to probably need to figure out an escape plan. Like, I really started thinking about Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad. And I started talking to the other folks at Co-op. I said, no. If you don't have a plan for how to escape all that's about to happen here, we're not doing our job. Like, if you and your family and your community don't have a plan for that, I'm like, no. Because I thought about, going back to World War II and other horrible things that we've seen around the world where people waited too late to leave. And I was like, we're not going to be those people. So we started, we can't be those people that you wait too long to leave and then you're blocked from leaving. So at least I said, could we start having the conversations with each other about how are you really? And so that's what we did. We contracted with an accountant that one of our members uses, and we paid for him to do a thorough review of everybody's financials.
Oh, nice.
We really started talking to each other about just everything, so that we once we started realizing, okay, we know who still owns on student loans, we know who's underwater on their mortgage, we know who literally can't pay their rent next month if we weren't able, because the work went down, like all the work went away. Because
wait, so this was a year and a half into Sweet Livity's existence?
This was like March 2020. So Sweet Livity started in 2012.
Oh, I thought you had said that it was 3.5 years.
The last 3.5 years of Sweet Livity's existence has been shifting to a co-op.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you for explaining.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, I'm gonna stop. Okay, I'm gonna stop you because I realize I'm far behind. So can you tell me the background of Sweet Livity and yourself and how you got involved in Sweet Livity?
Got it. Yeah. So my first career was in public health, and my second career was in nonprofit community development. But if I think about like what got me thinking about this idea of Sweet Livity, it has to go back to childhood, because my brother, sister, and I were raised by our mother, who became a single mother after divorce. And um, I remember as latchkey kids, sometimes we were like, "Where is mom?" Because it would be dark, and she's a school teacher, so she gets out at 3 o'clock. So she was always home before dark. But there would be times when she um, hadn't made it home, and it's dark, and we're worried about her. And when she got home, we would find out that she had been in the emergency room because she had
Whoa.
had some kind of anxiety or panic attack or heart palpitations because of something that happened at work that day. And so our mom was someone who freely shared every day at the dinner table what happened to her that day. So we were really, like, interestingly enough, like, I think those conversations and hearing mom just really like pour herself out every day about what happened, sometimes having to have a glass of wine or maybe something else stronger to help her like just get through the night. And we're like, So I just remember like I remember in the back of my mind, I was like, why is she suffering so much from work? Because she loved teaching, but it was something about, and it was never the kids, and it was very rarely the parents. It was always power, hierarchy. It was
Mm.
administration. It was always that. But fast forward, I started working when I was 16. And I think because of the way my mom was such a rebel rouser, she was very active in her school union. She took us around to like the Rainbow Coalition meetings and all that. My mom was really like, she didn't care. She stood up for her rights no matter what. We might be at the grocery store line. We're like, oh, if someone thought they were going to jump ahead of my mother in line or whatever, or disrespect her with their tone or attitude, it didn't matter. My mom was not going to let it go by. And I remember as a young person, I was like, oh, here we go. But later, I didn't know how much she had influenced me. And so every job I ever had until I founded Sweet Livity, I either quit or I was fired from. If I was fired from, it was because I was the only one that shared my identities, or maybe one of two. And there was just something about the way I expressed my voice in those
Been
spaces
there,
that
done that, FYI.
they didn't want to have any of that. They didn't want to hear any of
I was gonna
that.
say that.
No. Or I felt so much pressure to succeed and not fail so that other people could get through the door, that I was afraid to ask for help and support. I was afraid to show that I was failing, and so I was failing. So that would be the reasons why I was fired. Or I quit, which was most of the time. And if I quit, it's because I saw something happening that felt to me like an injustice. And I was like, I can't just see shit and not say something. That is not me. So I would do my best without the skills to try to make things right. And it never worked. And I was a documenter. I would always document. And so I would be a letter writer, And so I would just say, I quit. Not all the reasons why I documented, right? So fast forward, right? 2003, I have a dream about creating some kind of a healing sanctuary in the Caribbean. And I actually spend 5 weeks in the Caribbean, in Jamaica and Barbados. And I say, oh, this can happen. I'm organizing people on the ground and we have this idea. And then I come back to the States and I'm like, what are you doing? You have no money. You don't know what you're talking about. Who do you think you are talking about? You're going to buy 100 acres and build this amazing place. Like, girl, please.
Hey, I
And so
like
at the
your
same,
dream. I love your dream. Don't
right?
ever stop dreaming.
So then one of my mentors, Omawali, reached out. And he was like, hey, what you up to? He took me out to lunch. And I told him, I said, I just came back from the Caribbean and I want to do this thing. And so then he said, well, I have this idea, you know, uh, I'm building this national organization. It's a couple years old. I really want you to come on and be a part of the team. And so I remember this was in the summer of 2003. And I was like, because I was scared of my own dream, I was like, okay, I'll put that on the shelf. And I feel like I could learn a lot from Omawali and his team. So let me do that. Within 1 week of starting work, I started October 5th, 2003. Within the first week of work, all the people that worked there were coming into my office telling me the stories about what was wrong there. Yep, they were in pain.
Wow.
They were suffering. They thought that there was a lot of injustice. And so I was like, am I in the right place? Am I supposed to be here? And I remember calling my life coach who was in Jamaica. And I was like, Wesley, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here. Why am I here? Am I supposed to be like providing some healing in this space? I'm confused.
And was this
I,
a Black-led
the
organization?
Black-led organization. We're
Wow.
all people of color. And I was like, so I was like, I said, okay. So I decided to stay. I stayed for 6 years. And I mean, the work we did was amazing. This culture-based way of doing community building and community development. So we were all people of color working in low-income communities of color around the country, rural community, helping people like who have an idea of something they want to do to improve conditions in their own community or neighborhood. I mean, it was amazing work that we were doing. And I loved the people I worked with, but there was a cost because we were working so hard and we didn't know how to say no. Because
Oh.
nobody else was kind of doing the work the way we did it. So it was really hard to say no. And so I was getting sick, but not noticing. But I was like gaining weight, my asthma that I grew out of as child, things were starting to come back, but I wasn't really noticing because my focus is on making the world a better place. That's what we're doing, is all these sacrifices are worth it. But what was also happening was I wasn't spending time with my friends. Relationships were falling apart because they're like, you just care about work, you don't care about me. And so I realized, yeah, the other thing that I learned from my mom, because that's how my mom was that you sacrifice yourself and your dreams to take care of your children and to do work that's good in the community, like, to be active in the community. My mom is in her 80s now and still active with 5 or 6 organizations. Like she does not know how not to work. That's not that is not in her vocabulary. Like, right. So I realized I was a workaholic. And
Yeah, that's the word for it.
I was a workaholic and I had been since a young person, and I didn't know how to get out of it. And so I remember also we had a change in leadership, and almost stepped down and named his niece as his successor. And she was not a bad person, but she just had a different way of doing things. So she started shifting the policies in the organization for it to feel more corporate. So I'm not an ED, I'm a president. We don't have program directors, we have VPs. So I got this promotion to vice president of programs, making almost 6 figures, amazing benefits, right? So I'm like, oh, okay. But then I started seeing, when you're a VP, all of a sudden they give you access to information you didn't have before. And so I was like, wait a minute. I don't understand. It looks like we're in financial trouble. Are we in financial trouble? Why don't we let the community know? Because the people that we have served over these years and trained, they love NCDI. They will help. No, we have to keep it internal. Why would we, as the 2 VPs and the president, give ourselves a raise when the rest of the staff can't get raises? Why would we do that? I think we should not do that. We should not take raises. We should give them COLA. And I thought we agreed to that in a meeting. And then the next time I saw the budget report, I saw that the president had a $15,000 raise. I was like, are you joking me right now? You're really joking me right now. And then unbeknownst to me, we were asked to do an audit of how much PTO we were owed and vacation time we were owed. And I'm like, well, why are we being asked that? Shouldn't you know that already? Later, I realized it's because they were worried because we were in trouble financially, and they were all of a sudden worried about how much PTO they needed to have money to pay. If everybody's, because people had started to quit. If everybody starts to quit and we actually have to pay them what they're owed, we can't, right? So I remember I was working with the Detroit team because by now we had 3 offices. We had started in Oakland. We grew too fast. We didn't need to grow that fast, but we did. So I remember working with the Detroit team, and they were like, what are you talking about? Vacation. I'm like, I need you to tell me how much vacation time is owed you. They're like, well, we don't have vacation. I'm sorry, what are you talking about? You are an employee of NCDI. What do you mean you don't have vacation? That team had not been told that they had vacation that they were earning from the very first day of
my goodness.
So I helped every single one of them figure out exactly how much vacation is owed to you. We submitted our reports. Kelly was incensed, the president. And so she called me in, you know, gave me that whatever. And she said, y'all have to redo everything. And I was like, I'm not redoing shit. And so I said, let me figure something out. So at this point, I was like, I said, I need some counsel. So I called, you know, like legal aid or whatever. I got a free consultation with a labor attorney. I said, I think I'm in a position as an executive at an organization that is doing something wrong related to labor laws, but I'm not sure what to do. So when I told him what was going on and what I had tried to do to fix it, but then what happened, the response, he was like, well, first of all, he said, usually people promote you to VP because they now expect you to keep your mouth closed. Like they expect you to go along with whatever management is throwing down. So they don't expect you to be advocating for the worker. They don't expect that. He said, so that's number one.
Wow.
He said, so true. So actually, like they might have a case about why are you doing that? He said, but I have a question for you. He said, why are you working for these people? And I was like, this white man had to tell me that.
That was gonna be my next question.
That's a white man asking me that. And I said, yeah, that is the question. So I realized that I need to leave. I remember one of my colleagues, Donish, when he left, about 2 years before I left, he was like, Diana, I know you. You're gonna try to stay here and make it work. You're gonna try to stay here and make it better.
What year was that you finally left?
I left in 2009. So he was like, so he left, he was like, I know you're gonna wait too long. And so anyway, I was like, but I did. I stayed 2 more years trying to make it work. And so one day, so but I still was trying to hang on even after the call with the guy, the lawyer. But I knew instinctively that I was gonna need help to leave this toxic work environment because I'm very loyal. So if I can help you figure out your dream, I'm gonna help you do it. So I hired a therapist and a business coach in August of 2009.
Wow.
Clear that I know I need to leave, but I'm going to need help. And about 2 months later, I remember being on the phone. I had just come back from a long, really hard business trip in Detroit. I was exhausted and hadn't got a lot of sleep. And it's like around 7:30 in the morning. And Kelly, the president, calls me on the phone at home. And I was like, why is she calling me so early? That's unusual. So I took the call. So it must be really important. So whatever Kelly is saying at the time, I remember realizing, wait a minute, this could have waited till I came into the office. Like this did not need to, you didn't need to call me.
Oh no.
So, but as we're talking, she finally, I think, registers in her brain that Diana's tired. So she says, you sound really exhausted. I always say, oh yeah. And then she said, well, we are working you like a dog. And she laughed. And that was the moment I said, okay, yeah, you're right. You are working me like a dog and I'm letting you. That's when I knew it was time to go. I tendered my resignation immediately and I left within 30 days. And I went on a healing journey. And I thought I'd be okay. I left thinking, oh, I'll be okay. They owe me $50,000 plus in PTO. Honey, on my last day of work, not only did they not have my final paycheck ready, we're now in disagreement about how much you owe me. So I was like, I have to go. I knew if I stayed there, right? If I stayed there, I literally either was not going to survive because I was so sick by the time.
Wow.
Or I would not like the person I would have to become to stay there. So I left and I left that 6 figures, left those benefits, and I went on a healing journey, went to Belize for a while. I just had to just figure out how did I land here, first of all? And then what do I do? So as I went through my healing journey and started getting better, I started having this idea about, okay, how could I integrate healing into what I used to do?
Wait, so that would have been 3 years before Sweet Livity was founded.
Yeah.
So this was like quite a while of a healing journey.
That's right. Because I had to recover. And then, it was interesting that there was this one little gig that came in the door that my last month of employment. And I remember Kelly and I were like agreeing that I would do it. Then when we were in disagreement about my pay and all that, she was like, I think I should do the gig. And I had converted to contractual status just to help
Okay.
them close out a few things for like 2 or 3
Okay.
months. So I remember calling the woman that had asked me to come and speak. And I said, hey, I couldn't say more before, but now I'm no longer part of the organization. I'm a consultant, however. And, Kelly's thinking maybe she should take the gig. And she was like, no, I asked you to come for a reason. This was
Very interesting.
right. She's like, no, I asked you specifically. So that gave me the courage to say to Kelly, I'm taking the gig. And I remember Kelly was like, um, yeah, whatever. It's only $5,000. Like, so I remember taking the gig and I went to LA. It was with First Five LA, and they're like a quasi-governmental agency, and they were considering shifting their funding priorities from funding organizations and projects to doing place-based work, meaning you're investing in residents and groups in a place to help improve. That was because we had become known for our place-based work at NCDA. So they had someone talking from an academic perspective from the University of Chicago. They had someone talking about it from a local perspective from LA. And then I was representing the national perspective. And what was interesting was not being fettered anymore by working at an organization that had a lot of funding that made it hard for us to tell the truth about what this work is and what it requires. I was totally liberated to just tell the truth. I was like, it's a one-shot thing. I'm coming here to talk to, these commissioners about if you're going to do this work, this is better how you do it. Otherwise, don't even go down that journey. This is what it looks like to really center the people in the community and decision making. I told the truth. And what I did not know was that me being liberated to tell the truth had a really big impact on them. And so they decided to go into a new strategy called Place Space. And in February, which is about just enough time where I started recovering from feeling so sick, I got a call from them. And they're like, hey, we want you to know that when you came and talked to us in November, it really had a big impact. And the commissioners have decided to invest in this new strategy. And we want you to be the one to guide us. So unbeknownst to me, that one little $5,000 gig for a day and a half talking to them led to my first contract outside of NCDI as a consultant.
Wow.
And, unbeknownst to me, by the end of that next year, I would make more money than I had made the year before as a VP, right? So I knew, okay, there was something here, but I still was in my healing journey because that was 2010. And I still was like, I just don't know that I want to be here in the US. So I moved to Belize in 2011 and I was there for a bit of time. And I had actually felt like I'm not doing this work that I've been doing. I'm going to build this retreat center that I want to do. So I was in Belize. That was what my plan was. But for various reasons that I won't go into unless we have time another time, which is there was a lot of gender-based violence in Belize that I didn't expect. And then that's when someone said to me, Diana, because I was watching some of the women that I met and made friends with, if they identified as lesbian or queer, I saw how they were treated. I was like, so I was watching that. And, at the time, because people didn't know about my previous careers, I just started doing things that I did usually on my free time. So like, I've never had a driver's license. So my driver, Mr. Kelly, he was like, do you do massage? And I was like, actually I do, but just usually for family and friends. And he was like, well, my wife had a stroke recently and she's been thinking that massage would help her, but she doesn't want anyone local that she knows to do that for her. She said, would you be willing to come talk to her? So I remember like, well, part of my recovery was also like just being myself in community. So like, I remember going to meet Mrs. Kelly and she definitely was still having issues around mobility and everything. But I listened to her, I asked my questions and I said, yeah, I'd be willing to help you. So the next day I came and gave her a massage, and I'll never forget, because here you have a Black woman in her 70s, I would say. And I realized as I was giving her the massage, she was in bed, I was like, she's never had one before.
Wow.
She literally has never had a massage before. So because she couldn't really talk even, but she's never had a massage before. So I gave her the massage. And then the next week, Mr. Kelly called me. He says, my wife wants to know if you'll come back. So that's how I started doing massage for Mrs. Kelly and other women in the community. And then I was missing my hip hop dance classes from Oakland. And so there was this young Garifuna woman in her 20s. I'm in I guess at this point, my 40s. And so I was like, hey, when she told me that she used to teach hip aerobics, but she wasn't doing it anymore because she had her own hair salon now. I was like, would you tag team with me? Because once I looked around, I was like, oh, there's no hip hop dance studios here in Belize, nothing there. So I was like, would you mind tag teaming with me and we could do something? So I remember she and I went around in the village because I chose to stay in really small rural villages. So we ran around the village where she'd grown up, and we got one place, the Help Age Center, to agree that we could do hip hop dance classes for the seniors there. And so
That's awesome.
We had to come to one meetings on a Tuesday evening and tell them what we wanted to do. They asked a lot of questions, and then they're like, "You're not gonna have us dancing like Beyonce, are you? Because we can't do that." I'm like, no, ma'am, we're not doing that. And so that's how I started doing hip hop dances for the seniors twice a week. And then they started bringing their grandbabies. So we had probably like age 0 to 80 something taking hip hop. So I was doing that. But I also started paying attention to like what it felt like as a woman though living there. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. So I was in my mind still trying to figure out how to make it work. I came back to the States for a family reunion. I'm in Muskogee, and my friend Terry calls me on the phone. She says, "Hey, have you seen this news piece about what's happening in Belize?" I said, "No, what is it?" She said, "Isn't this the place where you're supposed to be moving to when you go back?" Because long story short, I had finally found this elderly white couple who had an amazing place called Iguana Creek Resort, and they wanted to barter it away or they were ready to sell it. And I was like, oh, me. Yeah, yeah. So they were like, yeah, when you come back from your family reunion, come here. We have horses, stables.
Wow.
You can build your medicine trail you want to build. Everything you want to do, you could do here. I was like, awesome. So I'm in the States and I get this call from Terry and I look at the article. I said, oh my God. So what happened was while I was gone for those couple of weeks, um, there was some gang activity going on in Belize. And one day they came on the property that I was supposed to move to when I went back. And they kidnapped the husband uh, and one of his workers. They tied them up in a van and burned them to death. So I was like, oh my goodness. So I started calling down to talk to some of the elders there to say what's going on, because I was trying to decide whether I should go back or not. And one of them said to me, I'll never forget it, Dr. Rosita Arvigo. And she was like, you know, Diana, this is really not a safe place for women living alone. It's just not. And I think you should not come back. And then, of course, my family here, they were all like, please don't go back. And so I remember thinking, you know, sometimes, because I can be really hard headed, but I was like, you know, when people who love you ask you sometimes to do something that's going to be in your best interest,
Yeah.
sometimes you should just listen.
Yes.
So then I said, okay, if I'm not going to be creating this retreat idea someplace like Belize, and I'm going to be back I'll stay in the States, then maybe I could just start that. So Sweet Livity started off with me just going into people's homes and doing wellness retreats. Because you learn a lot when I would call old college mates and former coworkers, like, can I just come and try this process out? So I had done a lot of research about the connection between like wellness and happiness. And I was like, can I just come into your home for 2 or 3 nights and just offer you what I want to offer? And so it was amazing what I learned through that, but I wasn't comfortable charging people for money. So I was like, I don't think I'm gonna make money doing this. And so slowly people from my previous 2 careers learned I was back in the States. And so they saw what I was trying to do. And they're like, would you come and do like a wellness workshop, or would you facilitate a wellness retreat for our team or for, so that's how Sweet Livity started.
Wow.
And Sam was one of the first people I reached out to. I said, Sam, I have this idea. I don't know what could be. Sweet Livity was a phrase I had held on to for many, many years, before I joined NCDI, when I was first in the Caribbean looking for land. Because
And is Sam your partner in Sweet Livity?
so when we started Sweet Livity, there were 6 of us initially, and then it came down to 2 because we weren't making any money. But Sam and I were like the co-founders who stayed and just kind of.
And how many of there are you currently in?
Now it's 13 of us.
Wow.
Yeah, so it went from 2 to 13.
Wow.
Yeah, and
how many years did it take that?
So I would say, let's see. So long story short, Sam started off in 2011. We incorporated in 2012 in California as an LLC. So then it was me and Sam and one other person for a while, management team. We had an internal conflict in our team. So that third person left. We brought 2 people in to facilitate the conflict. It did not get resolved. And so then Sam and I stayed. But then we still weren't making much money yet. So Sam had to go and take a full-time job. So then I kept going. But then around 2017, I decided to take up a challenge that was being issued by B Lab. So as a B Corp, because I certified as a B Corp right away. So we've been a B Corp since 2012. But they issued a gauntlet to all B Corps. We can do better around equity. We can do better around equity. And so even though I ended up getting tagged to actually facilitate a process of peer exchanges because of my expertise around diversity and equity and inclusion, I decided to also join the challenge myself as a CEO. And so in that process of doing some digging, I realized, whoa, wait a minute. I did not know until I started looking at the data that if you were to get a gig at Sweet Livity, you were more likely to get it if you were Black, not an immigrant, or white, cisgender, heterosexual, and of a certain age.
Wow. That's awesome. So you looked at your own bias.
I looked at my own. I said, oh my God. If you had a degree,
that is
I
deep.
was like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, no. If you were an immigrant, if you were queer, if you were gender nonconforming, if you were younger, if you didn't have a degree, you were less likely to ever get it.
Do you think that's because it sounds like a lot of the people were already maybe like in your circles, and so you're picking from your circles? Is that what was happening?
It was that, but I was picking from my circles, but I was picking people who were triple threats.
Oh, interesting.
Triple threat meaning you are a kick-ass facilitator, number 1. Number 2, you have deep experience around racial justice and equity work, and you're a healer. Because I was still trying to figure out a business model where people could make, I was like, oh, so then I realized, wait, no. So I wrote about it. I tried a partnership with Standing in Power and Tage, who's the founder of that network, who's also part of the co-op. We tried something because they were also having a similar challenge where they noticed all the women they were serving, because they only serve women of color, but all the women they were serving were mostly cisgender and heterosexual. So we tried a partnership to do a train the trainer to see if we could like create our own pipeline of developing people to have the skills to do this work.
Wow.
It was a fail.
Okay.
But I wrote about it. I started writing about it and talking about it. And Sam, unbeknownst to me, somehow I think heard about it, and then also was really being harmed at their workplace and just happened to call me up on the phone.
Wow.
And I was like, Sam, you are calling at the perfect time, because I have been like struggling with the biases that I've also held. And Sam, as like a Black, Indigenous, queer, gender non-binary person, I was like, Sam, I said, are you ready to do it? Like, really? And they were like, I'm so ready to leave. I said, then why don't we just co-lead, like from right now? So that's what happened. So in like summer 2017, Sam and I became like co-CEOs and started doing it together.
Wow.
And then I noticed right away, I said, got it. Because Sam's combined lived experience with their intersecting identities, and then also their own professional journey experience, so different from mine, the work was better. I could see I said, So
Wow.
then we just started building and like bringing people in to do work with us. And,
Wow.
Sam has a much more diverse network than mine in different ways. And then it made me think more thoughtfully. So we just started inviting people to
And now
say,
that, oh, sorry.
oh yes, we said, I think we think we have something here, but the two of us can't hold it. So we put a call out
Oh,
to our
wow.
networks. And then the 13 we have here are the people who answered and stayed.
Wow.
And
So
that's how we got
that's
here.
amazing. And so do you think that, so you said that you've 3.5 years now have moved to a cooperative
Right,
structure.
because by the time we got back, all reaching out, recruiting,
Mhm.
we're gonna build something together. So I would say like our first retreat was December 2018. Yeah.
So when the group came on and that call that you put out there, were you explicit about the fact that you guys wanted to build a cooperative?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh,
That was
wow.
we want to do something. We think we have something special. We want to do a co-op. We don't know what it's going to be. We don't know that the work we're doing now is what it should be, but we just don't want to do any more work without other people at the table. Like
Wow.
we just want
That's
to,
fantastic.
yeah. So people were like, yeah, I'm in.
So
And
did you, oh, go ahead. I apologize.
we've been in discovery this whole time because we reached out to all the people you're supposed to reach out to, like Dowie and other groups, Democracy at Work, and all these, and nobody could help us. They were like, what you're trying to do is not quite, they're like, well, what you sound like isn't quite fit in this box. Like, oh,
Oh,
are you
interesting.
we can't tell what you're trying to do. Are you a producer co-op? You provide services? Are you we're like, what? We just want, can you just help us like figure out like how to figure out what it is and raise some money and that's it. Like, so it was like, wow. So we did find Maria Pascal, and you might want to talk to her. She's amazing.
Yeah.
She had been doing her work in Oakland with her co-op as the ED. And so she and I had run into each other at some networking meeting. Um, and I want to say it was in 2018. And so she agreed to facilitate our retreat, our first retreat in December 18. Because I knew I couldn't facilitate it. That's the other thing that made this process longer. Doesn't matter how much I know and how much I've learned over these years about co-ops and all that. I'm like, I have too much power. So there's just no way I can facilitate. So things just take longer. I'm like, nah, nope. So it's been a long process because one, it took people so long to believe me, particularly when I said, I don't care about the name. I don't, we have to figure out what we want to do together. It is not about you carrying on work that I've done and then Sam and I've done. It's not that. But people just didn't believe it for so long. They kept trying to figure out how to make Sweet Livity work. We're like, no. Everything we're doing right now, because then the work did start scaling because the people that came to help the co-op, they're like, hey, can I make some money? We're like, of course.
Well, talk about money. How did you figure out, like, did you in that retreat talk about a compensation model, or was that
Mhm.
after sort of people bought in, then you
Mhm.
decided on a compensation model?
We together kind of evolved together. So for example, like Sam and I had evolved a profit sharing model with each other. So then when we invited the people in, the people who were like, oh yeah, I'm ready to work. Then whoever was ready to work, we just figured it out together.
Okay.
So it kept changing.
Okay.
Like, but we were deciding together, how do we pay ourselves? How much goes to support operations? Like it just kept evolving as more and more people came. So right now we have out of the 13, there's 6 of us that are core team. But we're still in this bridge moment until we have the co-op in place and we're all making the decision together. But every decision that we make as a core team, we have to run it by the rest of the folks at our co-op meetings.
And
So
so when you
Mhm.
talked about like financing, so
Yeah. So
have
we
you
thought, yeah,
had those discussions about what it means to try to finance a
uh-huh.
cooperative? Or
We have. I was back in 2016, 17. I went to Jenny Cassin's Dare to Dream or something for women business owners. And when I was hearing her talking about capital raising, I was like, this sounds very competitive. It sounds just very much like what we're trying not to do at Sweet Livity. And so I was like, what about cooperative capital raising? I said, as an African American and the legacy of Black Wall Street, because some of my ancestors on my mom's side are part of Black Wall Street, I said,
oh wow,
I really believe in cooperative economics and self-determination. Like Kwanzaa is something I grew up with. Like,
oh,
have
wow.
you ever seen a model of cooperative capital raising where a group of businesses together raise capital? Nah, I never heard it. Nah, there doesn't exist. And so then I was like, I don't believe that to myself. So I started every conference I went to, I brought it up. And I finally am at a conference of SV, the Social Venture Network. And this was like 2018-ish, 19. And I remember asking the question. And at the time, her name escapes me. I'll give you her name because you should talk to her too. But she's Cherokee Nation. And she was the ED at the time. And I went to one of her workshops about capital raising. And I asked my question that I always ask. And most people said, no. And she said, actually, you know what? Because no one would answer the question. Jenny Casson, this white woman who was like, no, Diana, no. She was sitting at the table in front of me. And she looked back at me when I asked the question. She said, I know you. I knew you were going to ask that question. And so at first, there was this dead silence as usual. But then finally, the ED, I'll give you her name. She was like, you know what? I want to go back to Diana's question. Actually, you know what? In First Nations, we do that. I realized we've raised capital together where different First Nations came together to do. It's possible. I said, So anyway, long story short, I tried to organize, and I got a meeting actually with an investor. We went to her home that weekend. It was me and Tej from the co-op and Jenny, and we went to meet with this person. But that person still wasn't into what I was talking about. They were still like, what could we do for them? Versus, so I was like, So I tried to see if I could work with Jenny. And then I was like, no, Jenny is also someone who has harmed a lot of people in the Big Creek community, people who are, I'm part of the Dismantle Collective, which is it's a Black-led, all BIPOC group of people working to dismantle white supremacy in business. So I was like, okay, so Jenny's not the way. So I've tried. We have it written down how we think it could work. We wrote down like a 2-pager, but no one has bought into this idea of a group of values aligned businesses raising money together. So the way we're developing the co-op is that all of the members are bringing their entity or they're bringing their sole practice. And we do intend to raise money to support all of us. So right now, Tej is the lead on that. And there's, I think, 6 of us in the co-op that are part of the resource mobilization and storytelling group. And if I think about what we were listening to you offer, Shira, when we were talking with you and Elizabeth last month, we definitely want to put together a strong storytelling campaign to tell people what's happening, what happened to us, what's happening to workers in these groups that we've worked with, and why we need to pivot. So it's so funny that where we're landing now, which is kind of so amazing, is where I was starting out at in 2011 about this idea of a retreat center, because we realized people still need that retreat.
Wow.
They still need refuge. They still need sanctuary. So we're raising money so that people who have been harmed through this work can go on a sabbatical, rest, recover, refuge. So we want to create.
I love when things come back around.
We want to create land-based spaces inside and outside the U.S. for people to be able to refuge, rest, awesome. And recover, and then support them in whatever their next step is. So,
well, I guess what you said also makes me think about what would you say, like, what is the importance to you of working with the fact that Elizabeth L. Carter ESQ LLC is, Black-led, Black women-led.
It has meant everything. And I wish I could remember how did I find Elizabeth? I'm going to go back because I'm going to figure out how I found her so I could tell you. Because we have talked to so many lawyers since that retreat in December 2018, and nobody could get it. And not only could they not get it, their way of working didn't work for us. Not to say that, how can I put it? What I could say is, it's not like your firm or our company doesn't know how to do the things you have to do to excel in your area of expertise, right? So there's obviously ways of white supremacy culture that we've had to learn and adapt to thrive in this current system we're in of capitalism, patriarchy, right? So for real, we know how to do that. However, we were also looking for someone who culturally could hear something, like could hear the essence of what we're trying to do, and was gonna not say to us, "You're crazy. That's not doable. You need to think smaller."
Yeah, more
That
like, how do we figure this out?
There's more of that. Yeah. And so it also felt values aligned in the sense that we are on purpose BIPOC only. Like, that's it. We can serve anyone, but in terms of who is owning and leading here, no. We're very clear about that. So it was also, I'm not gonna find out how I found Elizabeth, because I was so excited. And I know how I found Elizabeth. Of course I know. Of course, from another Black woman. Alex from Get Shit Done.
Oh, there.
When Alex, you have to talk to Alex.
Alex.
You have to talk to Alex
Okay.
to Get Shit Done. I went through a cohort of hers in November, fall of 2020, as I was recovering from COVID. But in my head, I said, there's something I'm missing that is not helping the co-op right now, and I need to figure it out. And so she was all about how to help women entrepreneurs scale their companies. So I said, let me go, because we want to do this cooperative capital raising, but there's something we're not getting. So I participated in the cohort, and then I invited the co-op to come to the graduation day where we all do our pitches. But she heard through my participation that we were really struggling to find someone to help us with both closing the deal on the co-op structure and figuring out cooperative capital raising. That's what it was. So she connected me to Elizabeth. And then Elizabeth and I had a call together, and then that was it. I brought it back to the group, and then people in the group had a chance to meet her, and then that was it.
I love that story.
That's
and I will look up Alex.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, Alex is amazing. Oh my God, you have to talk to Alex. Alex is, yeah. Alex is all about helping women-owned businesses earn $1 million or more.
Wow.
Only 4% of us get there.
And how many stay?
Huh?
I said, no, how many stay?
That's another question. That is another question. That's a good question. Yeah.
Wow.
So, but yeah, you got to talk to Alex. But that's how we found. That's how I realized. And tell me how you're doing on time. But that's how we found Elizabeth.
I might have to pop off soon.
Yeah, if you want to read, if you
especially because the little guy ends up like, Mom, as soon as he walks in.
I said, well, I want you to also have ease of transition. So if you need more time later, or if you want to just talk to the rest of the group, you could just send me a little note.
Yeah, I'll definitely let you know. This is really good. And I really would love to hear from the rest of the group. Like you said, it would be interesting coming from you as the visionary, and then what it's like to step into somebody else's vision and try to make that work.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, let's do it.
And change the vision. Like change it.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing, is how does an existing organization accept that change?
Yes, exactly.
So that's really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So
I appreciate you. No, I appreciate you. This was awesome. I literally was like, I don't know. I just like to listen and listen. I'm like, oh, okay, wait, I forgot. I was supposed to ask questions. Let me get some questions in. Otherwise, I'm like, oh, really? Oh, but yeah, it's very interesting. And for me personally, I have to tell you, I love hearing what you said, because I think so many times you've gone through things, and hearing that you are not like an exception. And I don't mean that like that's not a good thing, but it also can be, it can also kind of be helpful to realize, like, no, I wasn't crazy, especially when you feel like something is race-based and and or even gender-based, and you start to think like, is this all in my brain? And then the what do you call it, the healing that you have to go through, because I would say that my healing process was about 4 years.
Okay.
And I mean, it is because you take it into every interview, and you just don't. And how do you decide to, I feel like we aren't educated to do things cooperatively or by ourselves or any of that. And so I just want to say, like, thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for having the courage to, whether you say it's how life happened, in the end, you had to have the courage to stand up to that, I guess, challenge that was being, you were facing. And so for people like me, like I said, I'm just going to say thank you, because hearing these stories, it helps to also validate, just like the what we've gone through.
Mm.
And just know that there are people out there that are trying to address this and work with people. So it's good to see that there's a solution. Like there wasn't a solution for me. I had to figure it out by myself. But
Oh my
for
God.
people, I like really think I think that's awesome.
Okay. Thank you so much,
Okay,
Shira. I
thank you,
really
Anna.
appreciate you.
I can't wait to talk to you soon. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Much love.